Okay, I apologize everyone for the delay, but I wanted to say good afternoon and welcome to a Brightspace Community Site webinar. We're really excited to have you join us today for our very first Ask the Expert webinar. My name is Roxana Lavrekovic and I'm your Brightspace Community Facilitator here to help connect you to D2L's technology, services, resources, and content. Before we get started, I'd like to just go over a few housekeeping things. So in advance, we'd ask that everyone provided their questions and submitted them so that we can prioritize those questions first and also be prepared to give well-rounded responses. If anyone has not submitted their questions, we ask that you do so in the question pod. Craig will do his best to get through as many of them as possible for today. And if this webinar is successful, we would definitely be open to hosting more in the future. So any and all feedback is welcome. Given the unique nature of each instance of each of your LMS instances and the course-specific technical support issues, we're asking you to try not to ask questions that are instance-specific, as we won't be able to address them in today's webinar. If you have encountered any errors or if a tool is not behaving as expected, I'm going to ask that you please contact your support contacts. The Ask the Expert webinars are intended to provide answers to how-tos or how-do-I-type questions only, so please keep that in mind. And now I'd like to introduce Craig Romanec. So Craig is a senior trainer here at D2L. He combines a strong technology interest with a commitment to pedagogy and aims to bring this merger to the forefront of training with D2L to best aid clients in making the most of their online educational experiences. Craig holds a Bachelor of Education from the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto, among other higher education degrees and certifications. Prior to joining D2L, Craig was a K-12 teacher for several years, and many of you probably already know Craig, have spoken with Craig either on the community or through some training opportunities. And so with that being said, I'm happy to pass the torch and let Craig get started.
Good day, everybody. I hope you find yourself well today. I've been given a few questions in advance, and people have been very kind to kind of email in or message me in some questions that have come in, and some are very easy to address, some are very interesting, some are not as easy to address, and some are kind of somewhere in the middle where it seems like it might be easy, and there's a couple of just things to point out about it. So if we do talk through stuff, it's a sincere request. Oh, that's no good. Yeah, I'm hoping that people can hear me now. That's the reason for the interruption. I'm getting a report, though, that I'm not audible, just in case I am to some. Oh, hello, just doing a test of audio right now. Okay. Good. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining me today. I hope you're well. I have a bunch of questions loaded up and ready to go, and I'll do my best to get through them. If anything does make you think of something, I do like these questions a lot, so feel free to type that into the chat, and Roxana will convey those to me, and we'll try to get through them. Some of these are really interesting questions, and some of them are so interesting there's not a super answer, but I'll do my best to be honest with you, to let you know where you can make success and gains and where you might have to cut some losses as we get through things. So the very first question I have here to tackle is very specific. What's the best way to get content into my course? And that's not an easy answer to get, because there's, as with a lot of things with Brightspace products, there's a few ways to go about and do things. And while that's pretty neat in one facet, because it gives them some flexibility, on the other hand, it makes things a little more complicated, and it's easy to lose track of what's the best thing to do. So I have two recommendations for you, really, and it depends on how you're creating your course. I'm going to speak to what I've noticed tends to be the most popular method, is that people create their course content offline. So if you're an instructional designer out there, your job is full-time developing courses and such, hold on a little bit. This does apply to you. This applies to you. And also, if you're a faculty member who just has some Word files or PDFs or PowerPoints on your hard drive that you want to get up into your course. If you've taken training with us, and I'm just going to navigate as I'm talking here into some course content. If you have taken some training with us, then most of the time we usually go through the user interface. So there's an upload/create, which is new with the new language changes that have happened recently. And from there, we've probably told you that here you can go to upload a file or create a link, that kind of thing, to go ahead and get those files up into it. It's not the most efficient way. It's not too bad. If you're going to create a lot of files, a lot of HTML files, it's probably better just to do your authoring offline. Get yourself something like brackets or any other kind of free HTML editor and start creating your content offline, and you end up with a bunch of files. So the two ways that I'm recommending, at least saying that you do have a bunch of files that's sitting on your hard drive and you want to get those up into your course, is to either drag and drop them in, and I'm going to show you a setting to make that a little more fluid. And the other one is to zip everything and to use a course builder tool, which came out, geez, when did we release that? I want to say 9 or 9.4 or 9.1, somewhere in that zone of time. We released a tool called Course Builder, and it kind of sits in the background now, but it still has a really useful feature for being able to get your files up. So I'm going to show how both of these work, just to so you can decide which one kind of fits your workflow better. So the first one, dragging and dropping. I'm going to create a module 1 and a module 2. You will have to come in here and create some modules manually with this drag and drop method, but the good thing is it's not terribly hard. You just kind of click and you type a name, hit enter, and your goal, and then you have a couple of modules ready to go. I have, over here, I have some content. So on my hard drive, I have a module 1 made up of 4 files, and I have a module 2 made up of 3 files. 7 files in all ready to go. So this is what I'm working with. This is what I want to get up there and using in my course. Now, before I actually start dragging and dropping to my heart's content, I am going to recommend a setting that I rarely see on for people. So pay attention that you kind of catch over here. There's a settings when you're inside of content. This is where you go to find the option to make dragging and dropping a little more friendly for you. And in these settings, I'll highlight it here so it's a little easier for you to sort of scan out with your eyes. There's a couple of checkboxes. One is to show a prompt, and the other one is to replace files, which, because you can read well enough, you can see that for yourself. Without those checkboxes, if those are both unchecked, which they are by default in most cases, then if you drag and drop something onto your content, it will upload it to your Manage Files area and put everything at the root. And I guess that might be okay for some people, but if you're an organized person, then you don't really want that. You want your file area to be organized and all set up. So what I recommend is at the very least checking off this first one that I have checked. Here we go. And the second one is just a matter of preference. If you're uploading a file that already exists in your course files, do you want to overwrite it right away by default, or do you want to be prompted, or do you want it to append a number at the end? A bit of safety there, things. It's up to you to decide what that is. For me, that I panic too much, so I'm just going to stick with that first one. So making sure that that's done, I grab my 4 files, and I'm going to drag and drop them. Boom. And this is what that first checkbox does for you. It opens, instead of just uploading everything and putting it in the root, as I said, it presents you with a prompt, with this pop-up dialog asking where do you want to save these files in your course file area. And so I'll click Change Path, and I'll navigate that down just so you can see it here. So I click the Change Path button. My course files area is completely new. I've emptied out this course. It's nothing going on in it. So I will create a new folder, and I'll call this Module 1. So that all my Module 1 stuff goes in there, and I'll create another one because I'm forward thinking. and I'll create a module 2. You can do this within the course file area too if you want to start. It's up to you when you want. So I want to dump everything in module 1 inside of my empty sandbox. And then from this point forward, I can click Save and just kind of proceed with my day. There's a Don't Ask Me Again. And this is really an interesting feature. It doesn't spell it out so much in words. But if I check this box, then anytime I drag and drop into this Module 1 module, it'll automatically put things into the Module 1 folder in my course file. So it maps these two together, and then I never have to be presented. Anytime I just drag a file over to Module 1, it goes there. If I start dragging into Module 2, then it pops up and prompts me, well, hang on, this is a different module. Where do you want to put this kind of stuff? That's pretty slick. There you go. Boom, 4 files there, and you do the same thing moving forward. I'm going to grab files 5 and 7, and I'll drag, because I keep dragging onto this box that reads drag and drop files here to create and update topics. Well, that's awesome. That's not a problem to understand at all. But I wanted to show something else. So I'll put these into module 2. And yeah, and for this one, I'm going to click Don't Ask Me Again. Did you know that once you have some files up there, that box that I've been dragging and dropping onto disappears? You don't have that anymore. That doesn't mean the dragging and dropping fun is over. You can certainly pick a file, pick 6, which I skipped over, and you can put that where you want. So I'm hovering right now between files 5 and 7. And you can see there's this gray line drawn across the screen, and this means that the file will be uploaded with everything that I set up, and it'll place the content topic between files 5 and 7. If I want, I can place that anywhere. I can place it above the 5, so it'll become the first topic in this module. So you get a bit of flexibility that way. So I'm just going to drop it between 5 and 7, which works spectacularly well, as you can see. Thank goodness for drag and drop. So 5, 6, and 7, those ones are up there. And this is one way for you to be able to get those files up into your content area. So there's number 1, drag and drop. And I put a little bullet point in here to just to be able to make sure that you go to content settings and turn on that drag and drop behavior. So tell me all about the zip upload through Manage Files, Craig, and how Course Builder plays into this. I will, and I'm glad you asked. I'm going to go to Manage Files. And I'm just going to flush everything out. Boom, boom. So let's start the show all over again and take a look at how things work for Manage Files. And just to be clear, while this is happening, don't forget that the relationship between Manage Files from your course administration area and your content is that the files themselves reside inside of that course, the file manager, and content is just links to open up those files and display those files in a proper kind of way. The prep work I'm going to do, whoops, if I open the right window, is I'll come back here. Let me pop over to Module 1 and 2. On my hard drive, not only did I create all of my files, my 7 files that I want to upload, but I also have them in folders, as you can see, Module 1 and Module 2. Hopefully this isn't too tiny on your screen. If it is a bit, then just take my word, I'm highlighting over something that reads Module 1 and Module 2. So the idea here is that I want to compress these, and I'll just do it the regular way here. So on a Windows machine, just go to Send to Compressed Zipped Folder, and My Course. Go, and I have a zip file named My Course, which is made up of, well, Module 1 and Module 2. Good. So moving in, let me go to Manage Files. And you can normally get there through your Edit Course or Course Admin, depending on which version of the Lang Pack change which side of the hill you're on. I've put a link to it in my nav bar, which is actually a pretty good tip by itself. Students don't have access to this tool, and you can just iconify it in the nav bar, and it makes it really easy just to click one icon and boom, you're in Manage Files in the course. It's a pretty good ask for your administrator if you if you want. So I'm going to upload. And from here, I'll grab my course, my zip file. So I'm in my Manage Files area, and I've just clicked on the upload, and I'm going to upload my zip file and save that. Now, one thing about your Manage Files tool is that it has a built-in zip utility. So I've uploaded something. I can just choose to unzip. And I'll just let the screen catch up with me here in case there's too much of a delay on your end. And so now, after I chose unzip, which I'll leave my cursor down there, it just said, are you sure? And then I have a module 1 and module 2. If I navigate into module 1, there's my 4 files. And if I did go to 2, there'd be the 3 files in there. I don't need the zip file here anymore. It's already been extracted. I can just delete this one. Great. So my file area is looking like a good solid place to work from, but what about my content? There's a couple of ways to get to Course Builder, which is how I'm recommending we get in here. Let me create a module 1. One way is if you're in content, a table of contents, it's underneath the related tools button. You can also go to your edit course admin area and see a listing there for Course Builder. So whichever way just makes it easier for you. That's the right way to go in. So I'll head into Course Builder. Oh, let's close. Course Builder, if you've never been in here or seen it, because maybe you're a newer client and the content tool has been developed quite a bit now that this is not really a necessary tool to use anymore. How this generally works is on the right-hand side, you have just information for whatever's selected. In the middle, you have your content. This is the same tool. This is your course content. It's just a different interface for it. So really, you're looking through a different kind of window, but you're looking in at the same room. Whatever you do here in Course Builder shows up in your regular content. Whatever you do in content shows up here in your Course Builder. It's the same tool. It's just different paint that's on top of it. Now, on the left-hand side, you have things like build outline, add content, browse tools. I want to ignore all this stuff just to get down to the point. Browse tools is what I'm interested in. And there's a course files option. There we go. In my course files, it shows me my file manager. And I have module 1 and module 2. I'll click over here. And I can click and drag on module 1. And there we go. There's file 1. And what does that mean? Well, don't forget, I told you that it's the same tool. If I were to go into content and take a look at that, there you go. See, that's working out nicely. But I want to do more than that. So I can select multiple ones and then drag those over. And I can place them before or after file 1. Or just drop it inside of module 1. If I highlight something, then this means I'm dropping it inside. It'll place it at the end of whatever there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty good. I can add content from here if I want. I remember where. I can add modules from here. So I can drag over and create a module 2 in case I didn't prepare those directly when I was in the regular content tool. Then that's fine. I can create these as I go along. Shrink that again. Come over here. Let's go back and go to module 2 and let's select all of those. Boom, boom. Drop those into module 2. So there's 2 ways, and actually both of them are using drag and drop. Those are probably the 2, for me, the most recommended ways to get content into your course if you're developing everything offline, if you have a bunch of files ready to go. In fact, even developing a course, I would recommend this after the fact. And this is kind of skewing or branching off a little bit from the question. But I think it's really good to know this is not only a great way to get content into your course, this is a great way to build a course. If I did this to do my content, and then in my course I went to discussions, and I built out all my discussions, I went to quizzes, built out all my quizzes, grades, built out all my grades, and so on and so forth, then I can come back to Course Builder and be able to see quizzes. I have one quiz sitting here ready to go, and then I can just integrate that into my content, maybe between files 2 and 3 here. After you read a couple of things, I want a quiz. And it puts a link to that quiz. So back here, if I refresh my content, this is what I'm looking at. You can see right here I have quiz 1 ready to go in between. And module 1 and module 2 are all flushed out and in good shape. In fact, oh, what the heck. Another tangent would have hurt us, wouldn't it? So another great thing that this does, along the lines of kind of building a course and developing from there, is if you have grades in your course, which is more than likely that you might have, you can also use Course Builder to connect grades within things. So what I'm doing right here is creating, and I'm trying to do this just quickly and very roughly, I'm creating a grade item called Assignment 1, and it's not connected to anything. I'm going to head over to Assignments or Dropbox, again, depending on what your language pack is telling you. And I'll create an Assignment 1 here. And the two are not connected. I'm not going to choose the grade item. I'll just leave everything as it is and click Save and pretend that this is a meaningful assignment for people to do. So at least for building a course, so really this is kind of an efficient way to go. Go to Content, upload all your stuff. Go to the Grades tool and create your gradebook. Don't connect anything to it. Just create your gradebook as you would have it. And then create all your activities. Create your quizzes, create your Dropbox assignments, all that other kind of good stuff. And then meanwhile, back in the land of
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being patient with us. Craig just got dropped from Skype, but he is getting himself back in. So just sit tight. It should be a few seconds.
hello. Am I audible? Great. Apologies there. All right, I'm back and still raring to go. So what I suggested was to build everything out in silos and isolate it. And then back here in the Course Builder tool, I can click on, say, assignments or quizzes, whatever my activities are. I can pull that in maybe between, well, right at the end. So this way I have file 1, file 2, they're going to do a quiz, file 3, file 4, then they're going to have an assignment. But wait, you're telling me that this is not connected to a grade item, and that's true. However, Course Builder does and is able to make that connection. So after you populate everything in your content, saying this is my work, my flow for my course, you can come over to grade items and see your grade book. And then you can use this to make connections between your grade items and your activities. So right now, assignment 1 is not connected to the gradebook. I'll assign assignment 1 to assignment 1. And I get a little grade symbol down there, and on the right-hand side is telling me what's happening here, how things are connected. So yeah, this is a really good, efficient way to build your course. Get it all up there, use Course Builder at the end to connect things. It's also a good way to set up and create your course. Great. Let's move that off the screen. Cool. So that is our first question. Best way to get content into your course. Again, drag and drop. That's a really key way. Even if you ignore Course Builder, thinking, I don't want to go into another interface and learn that. If you just want to use the content tool, go to settings, turn on drag and drop, and then life is a lot better. If you do kind of want to jump that little hurdle and learn a bit more about another interface with Course Builder, get in there because it does a bit more than just getting your content in there. Good. All right. Moving on to the next question that we have. How would I set up an intelligent agent to send an email to remind students who have not yet achieved a score of 100% that they must do so? Ooh. This is one of those tricky ones that I said at the beginning, that some of these questions or answers are going to be fairly straightforward and some of them are not so much. This is one that's not so much. But I'll tell you what I can do, at least for a workaround. In fact, the person who asked it, I think, has been already notified and has found out about a workaround. But it is a very good question, and it's not a weird use case. So I threw this up to make sure that we cover this, so others should know about it. So to get into this, before we find out why this is tricky, because it seems fairly straightforward, at least as a sentence that to read, to find out why it's tricky, we need to start out with the non-tricky, the basic part, and kind of ramp our way up. So intelligent agents, if you're kind of new to it or you just want to refresh and make sure you have a solid understanding, it's a robot, really what it is. It's an automated system that sends an email out based on criteria. So there's only 3 things that it runs off of. Number 1, as you can read on my screen, hopefully you can read off my screen that you see it, is the criteria. What warrants an email to get out to people? Number 2 is the action. So that includes things like a schedule. How often, because this robot is actually not live. It's not paying attention every second for this criteria to happen. Instead, it sleeps most of the time. And it wakes up occasionally based when you tell it. You either poke it or you put it on a schedule. It wakes up and then it scans that criteria. And then it evaluates what should I do, at least for sending emails out. And the last thing is the message itself. What should the message read and who should it go to? Should it go to the instructor or to the students? Who's going to be notified about this thing? So those are the 3 components that make up an intelligent agent. So before we go with the hard use case of 100%, you don't have 100%, I want to start with an easier use case that works a bit better. I want to congratulate people who have passed a quiz, who have 80% or higher. And so here's how that works. We head into my course. And I'll go to my course admin area, or edit course. And I'll search out underneath communications, intelligent agents. And I'll create a new intelligent agent. Better than 80. There we go. The status, by the way, if your agent is disabled, it's like an off switch. It just doesn't send out any emails. So this is kind of a good safety because, you are building a polite spam machine in a way. So there's a good way to make sure that people get things or don't get things. So let me flip back and forth between this. Hopefully this works out pretty well. So for those criteria that we have, who's it for, how often should it evaluate and send a message, and what is the message? Here's kind of the robot thinking, so I put in beep here so that you know it's the robot's thought process happening. So let's build this intelligent agent based on what we saw, and then we'll come back here and go through how this agent interprets things. Okay. So as far as what qualifies for tripping off an email, it can either be login activity or it can be something like a release condition. And in my case, the release condition works perfectly well. Yeah. So it was something like a quiz, getting a certain score on a quiz. Now my quiz is being sent through to grade item, so it doesn't really quite matter which one I choose. So I'll choose grade 1 and give everybody who has greater than or equal to 80%. All right, so that's what warrants an email. Below that, I talked about schedule. So I can either set up a schedule, so the robot runs every week, every day, every month, every year. And I can also decide how often the repetition happens. And the repetition here means that when the robot wakes up for the first time and sends out emails, it decides or it realizes that there's maybe 3 students who qualified for an email to be sent out to somebody. And so the next time it wakes up, does it send out an email again to those same 3 students because they still qualify for an email, or does it kind of blacklist them and say, you know what, you received an email in the past, it's one time only one evaluation matters. So that's what that action repetition means. And the final part is the email itself. So, and we do need a subject in there, and you put in something like, hooray, you've done better. Good. All right, so with all of this done, this is the process, and here's where things, to build up for why things get a little bit tricky. So the robot wakes up because I put it on a schedule to run every week, and the criteria is that it needs greater than 80% or equal to. So let's take a look at the first time this robot wakes up, right over here on the right-hand side, my first run results. I have 3 students in my course, and they have a 50, 100, and a 40 in this course. So that means that in this case, there's only one student, that's student B, who has greater than. So as far as the robot's concerned, it runs through its memory, or it stores in its memory. This is the results for what students have, because it's my first time running, it's my first time waking up, and I've memorized these numbers. Terrific. So this means there is one student who has met that criteria, student B. So if I said I don't want to email based on students who achieved the criteria last time, well, there's nobody who did that last time. This is the first time this robot is running. So that's not a problem. And so this means it's going to send one email. And this is for student B, who has 100%. Job, student B. And hopefully you're looking at this and this makes some sense. This is panning out. This is all good. Terrific. Good. If it is, let's carry on. I said let's carry on. For the second run, and let me just get rid of these values. We had 0, 1, 0. For the second run, well, the robot remembers. This is the thing. It remembers from its first run what happened. So in this time, it takes a look at the second run results. It wakes up a week later, and student A and student C have retaken the quiz. Student A went from a 50 to 100 on their second attempt, and student C has a 50. Student C needs to get some work done there. Oh, well, for student C. For the second run attempt, here we go. This is what the robot remembers. Student A had a 50 and has 100. B has 100, and C has a 40 and a 50. So knowing those values, let's take a look what happens next. How many students have greater than 80%? Well, student A has a 50 and 100. One of those values is higher than 80%. The 100 is higher. So student A, great, there's 1. Student B, you have 100. That's 2. Student C, you've never made it past 80. So this means we now have 2 students that qualify. Student B was sent an email in the last week. So last time this robot woke up and did its run, then that worked out for student B. They got an email. So this means there's only one email going to be sent out this time, and that's going to be to student A, because B got theirs already, and there's only A and B that qualify for this email. If you got all this, then you're in good shape to understand why just a slight change in the question, instead of saying you have greater than 80, saying that you have 100% makes a world of difference. Or sorry, you have less than 100%. That's because in our memory, if this is the second time that this robot has run, let's use the same scenario, then let's take a look at users who have matched this criteria. So this is students who have less than 100%. Student A, they did the quiz the first time, have 50, the second time have 100. Well, there is one value, that 50. That's less than 100%. So this means student A is included. Even though you're thinking, wait, that's not right. Student A has 100%. They shouldn't get an email. That's not the case. Student A has a 50% in this robot's memory. So student B doesn't qualify. Student C definitely qualifies. 40 and 50 are both bad numbers. So this means we still have 2 students that qualify. And skipping over the second question here, this means that there are 2 emails that are going to be sent out. Student A will get an email because they had less than 100% at one point in time. The robot remembers. And it's not even a matter of the robot remembers, like, did the student A ever have less than 100? Ever have less than 100%? The factor is, has student A ever had less than 100% since the robot ran its first evaluation, since it first checked this release condition? And that's where things get tricky. So if you do want to allow for an intelligent agent or an email to go out to people who have not achieved 100% on a quiz, you have 2 options. The first is a workaround. Whoop, there we go. You can use a learning objective. So create an independent learning objective inside of the course. Attach it to a quiz and make the threshold 100%. In order to achieve this learning objective, you need to get 100% on the quiz. And then you can base the intelligent agent on that, because people either have the objective or don't. There's never a kind of up and down. Manual. If you only set this to run once in a blue moon, it's not too frequent, you only run it twice, such as in my examples, then go to the gradebook and filter to show everybody who has less than 100%, and then send a bulk email that way. And that sounds like a pain, but it's not. It really isn't. If I go to grades here myself, and I'll go to grade, enter grades for quiz 1. Here you go. I have a 5 out of 10, a 4 out of 10, and a 3 out of 10. This is a really low performing group of people. So if I want to, I can filter in the show search options. Show search options. Show me everybody for quiz 1 who has a score of less than 50%. Let's get rid of that Craig student who has 50. Let's lower my bar here. And then just click the search magnifying glass to bring back those people. And that'll bring me back those 2. There's everybody below a threshold, and then I can select them and email them. It would be a double shot thing, because I also want to capture those people who have never tried at all. And so for those, if I want, I can just say, show me everybody whose mark is blank, and search for those people, and it'll give me the people who have blank marks. This is generally useful. It's not only useful for this one question, it's useful just generally to know that you can filter in the gradebook and use it as a communication tool from there. So there's a couple of options. If you want to automate, it's a learning objective workaround. If you only want to run it once in a while, you want to give 1 or 2 warnings, it might be less work, or you might prefer just to get in there and do it manually, that we can eyeball which students are doing well and which ones are doing poorly, since you might be doing that anyway. Send an email from there. All right. Speaking of quizzes, our next question that comes to us is, how do I fix a quiz that students have taken that has a mistake? And this is common. You wouldn't think it is, because I had no idea. I still don't believe that instructors make mistakes, but it does happen. And there's a lot of instructors out there that kind of are left high and dry. They're not sure how to proceed from when this happens. So I've set up a quiz, and I had some students go in and take that quiz because we've seen the results already. If I head into quizzes, there you go, and go to grade. This is actually an area that most people are fairly familiar with. You go into grade. A little bit of run through. It's not terribly hard to get in and do. If I click on any attempt, then I see that student's quiz paper, and I can go in there and just manually override any mark. But an easier way to do it is just go to the Questions tab. Excuse me. Click on the name of the question that I want to fix. So I have this question, night is dark. That's true or false? And in this case, I had somebody point out it's when you're in the Arctic and it's summertime, night is not dark. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, that's true. Oops, let me go back. It's too busy talking. Instead of leaving it at a grading, flip it over to update all attempts. There you go. I want to update. I want to override my marks. That's what update means. And then I'll go to my question, night is dark. And there I can see the response rate, how many people chose false. I had 2 people that answered that, and they got a 0 when they shouldn't have. So if I want, I can call the question a wash and just give everybody a point. Or I can say everybody that answered false gets 1 point. What happened to that one person that answered true? They get to keep their point. If I really wanted to, I could click Save and give everybody who answered true 0 points. But both are the right answer. So whichever way works. So I'll show you how I ended up here again. Because now you're going, geez, that might be useful. So go to Grade, click on the Questions tab. Make sure you have Update All Attempts set, and then click on the question you want to update, and then you're good from there. As a bit of a kind of a greater scope, fix your question too. So make sure it doesn't happen to you in the future. And you should be in good shape. We'll take another look at another one here. This one came to me just before we went online. Well, soon enough that I got to put it in the slide. How do I export rubric data from a course, or for a course, and how do I get it across semesters? Yeah. Oh, sorry, technical issue right now. Again, please bear with us for 1 second. All right. Thanks so much, folks. So exporting rubric data for a course now, I don't have a brilliant answer for you, and I apologize. This is it. You need insights. For anybody who is wondering what the question is all about, I'm going to visit rubrics themselves give some really good data. They do. The problem is that it's on screen only. So if you ever do rubrics, it's worth visiting. Head over to a course, find a rubric, and the drop-down next to it, there's a View Statistics area. So when you click on View Statistics in the drop-down next to a rubric's name, you see all the rubrics that are in your course, and you get to click on any one of these actions, these little bar graphs, and it'll give you a bunch of information about how often did you grade one of those levels. I only have 2 assessments on this rubric, so this is not a great example, but you get to see all of this data. Cool. Unfortunately, you can't really export this data. If you do have insights, then it's possible to get some of this out. The way to do that, if you do have insights or you just want to see is it worth kind of pursuing, instructors would have access to something called an insights portal where they can go in and there's a report that exists already that they can use called Rubric Achievements. And I'll show you what it looks like just so you can see if this fits your use case or not. So you pick which role it is that you want to choose. You pick which rubric you're interested in, and then you pick which students you want to add to that. So for me, I've added all my students for one rubric. Click Run Report, and it'll give you a table. So here I have 5 pages. Boom, boom. Let's get to one with a bit more data. There we go. So where was this rubric used? Which assignments were they on? What was the level achieved? Who was the assessor? Now we have something kind of funky set up, so my assessor is empty. And what date did it happen? And that's exportable as a PDF or like a spreadsheet. And that's pretty much the only way you can get that rubric data out. Unfortunately, only for the course, not across semesters.
I do have a question come through saying, is there an easy view to allow students to review a quiz if the students have seen their grades but now want to review the questions?
I'm just trying to parse that in my mind. So they've seen their quiz, they finished the quiz, they've seen the quiz, they've seen their grade, and they just want to review the questions. Yeah, that comes down to submission views. Let me head over to quizzes. Oh, I'm already there. That's lovely. Great. And I'm going to edit this quiz and head over to submission views. When you edit your quiz and go to the Submission Views tab, the Submission Views is completely about what does the student see. Either, well, actually it's after they finish the quiz. So immediately after the quiz or like 10 years after they finish the quiz, if they still have access to it. So after the quiz, when can they see it? So there's 2 things you can do here. The first one is to go to Default View. Now on my screen, it doesn't look like much of a link. My text is kind of small and it's showing me this. So Default View, initially, I've changed mine, but initially it reads your quiz has been submitted successfully, and it doesn't show any questions, any answers, it just shows them their score. And this is all customized down here. It's just checkboxes and radio buttons. What do you want to show a student? So the easiest thing to do is leave it really locked down. Students cannot see the questions and the answers. But once the quiz is finished, nobody else is taking that quiz, edit your quiz, go to Submission View, click on that default view, and change it from no to yes. Yes, now students can see the questions and answers. Save that, and then all the students can see that if you want. If you want to get a little bit of fancy pants about it, you can leave the default view locked down and create an additional view based on a date. So once we hit this date and time, then show all the questions in that. But I don't know. I think a lot of people just kind of default to just changing the default view as they need it. Hopefully that answers your question. That's the best that I can get from it. Was there another one that came through?
There are a few more questions, but I am going to have to wrap it up because we're hitting our time. So We're 5 minutes away from 3 o'clock, and I want to make sure that everyone can get to their next meetings if they have that. So unfortunately, I do have to wrap up for today, but I did want to thank you all so much for participating in today's webinar. I hope you got a lot out of your session and time with Craig. And again, if you did enjoy this webinar and would like to see more webinars of this nature, don't hesitate to reach out or sit back and share some feedback in the question or the chat pod with me, and that would be great. All these webinars are recorded and added to the archive list on the Brightspace Community site webinar, which you can rewatch or share at a later date. With that being said, all the best to you on the rest of your day, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Take care.